Hi people, Artemisia here, and this is something we talked about in class. Well, we wrote an entire essay about it, and I thought this would have made a really good topic to debate here on my channel as my first video. I want to talk about capital punishment, and especially the American capital punishment system. Because as for today, USA is the only Western industrialized country to engage in this kind of practice, when in reality, death penalty is not only cruel and barbaric, but also ineffective and a waste of money and time. To begin with, as I said, death penalty is barbaric. The first record of this kind of punishment dates as far back as the code of King Hammurabi of Babylon, which makes this method about 3,700 years old, and it cannot be applied to modern judicial system. Still, in the United States, prisoners are executed by any one of 5 methods. The first one, hanging, the traditional mode of execution, an option still available in Delaware, New Hampshire, and Washington. The second one, firing squad, still authorized in Utah and Idaho. And the third one, electrocution, the most widespread method throughout the 20th century, still utilized in 11 states, but eventually substituted by gas chambers. The fourth method, the method that Hitler used in his extermination camps. Fifth, lethal injection, enacted to law by more than 30 states. All of these, as you can imagine, are incredibly painful and inhuman deaths. A society that truly values life does not use killing to solve social problems. It is not a kind of example we need to give citizens. Also, it does not bring any benefit to society, because capital punishment is not a deterrent to capital crimes. In fact, a punishment can be an effective deterrent only if it's consistently and promptly employed, and capital punishment cannot be administered to meet these conditions. In fact, of all those convicted on a charge of murder, only roughly 3% of those are eventually sentenced to death. This tiny fraction of murders does not even represent the worst of the worst. However, if severe punishment can deter anyone from committing a violent crime, then life imprisonment is enough. In fact, there is a vast preponderance of evidence that shows that life imprisonment is much more effective to deter anyone from doing a violent crime like murder, for example. And actually, the use of death penalty in a given state may even increase the subsequent rate of criminal homicide. In fact, between 2000 and 2010, the murder rate in states which capital punishment was enacted was 25 to 46% higher than those where death penalty wasn't enacted. So actual experience established beyond a reasonable doubt that the death penalty does not deter murder, and there is no comparable body of evidence that shows the contrary. Capital punishment is unfair. Yes, because although it is true that life sentencing should be employed with a certain amount of fairness, there is substantial evidence that the contrary is true. In fact, this may sound like some leftist bullshit, but racial bias is clear in death sentencing. Since the revival of death penalty in the mid-1970s, more than half of those in death rows were black. And America's death row have always had a disproportionately large percentage of African Americans relative to the percentage of African American population in the US. And also, comparing black and white offenders, blacks have been executed for things that were considered less than capital offense for white, for example, such as burglary or rape. And actually also an higher percentage of blacks were executed were juveniles. And the rate of execution without having one's conviction reviewed by any higher courts was higher also for blacks. And even more striking is the racial comparison of victims. Although approximately 49% of all homicides involved a white victim, about 77% of capital homicide cases since the 1976 have involved a white victim. So given this information, it's obvious that race is a decisive factor after all. Not to talk about gender and socioeconomic class, that also determines who receives a death sentence and who is executed. Women account for about 2% of those on death row, even though actually females commit about 11% of all cases of homicides. And discrimination against the poor, and let's face it, in our society racial minorities are disproportionately poor, is also well established, since poor cannot afford a good defense. Capital punishment is irreversible. Unlike any other type of criminal punishment, the death penalty is irrevocable, because of course once you're dead, you're dead. Even in the 1830, circa, Marquis de Lafayette asked for the abolition of capital punishment until it was demonstrated to him the infallibility of human judgment. Because exactly, human judgment is not infallible. On the contrary, since the 1900s, there have been an average of more than 4 cases each year in which an entirely person was convicted of murder and eventually sentenced to death. There are a handful of cases of innocent people sentenced to die. Some executed, some spared. I can't dwell much on them, but I will post in the description somewhere you can check their story. Last but not least, capital punishment costs more than incarceration. It is sometimes suggested that abolishing capital punishment would be unfair to taxpayers, on the assumption that life imprisonment is more expensive than execution. But if one takes into account all the relevant costs, just the reverse is true, because litigating a murder from start to finish, and this is a study that was conducted in North Carolina during the 1993, without an extra $100,000 on what it would cost to keep the convicted murderer for a convicted offender in prison for 20 years, and costs can go up to $200,000 per case. It depends on the case. In conclusion, death penalty can and must be replaced with more human and more efficient types of punishments, such as life without parole. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. I'm more than open to debating. Also, if you like the video, leave a thumb up and share with your friends. Bye!